Good morning and welcome everyone to our August meeting for Vision Zero. I trust everyone's doing well and we're keeping our meeting virtual as we strive to keep everyone safe. We know, especially in our county, how the Delta variant is affecting all of our communities. So I think it's important that we do what we need to do to keep our county safe. Just some housekeeping rules for today. Please mute your mics unless you're speaking. We want to engage and ask questions, and you'll have the opportunity to join the discussion. We look forward to having an open dialogue with our clergy today. And remember that we are recording this meeting. Just a quick note, it's been 3 years now since we debuted our rack card, and here's our rack card that we've had out there for a period of time. You see the front and the back here. Several thousand of these were printed and given out in the community before the pandemic. Now the communications office is helping us freshen up the design, especially on the back, which is very busy with a lot of data. We'll have more information when the new design is ready to share it with everyone. Just some good news. We've got a new roundabout that's coming at 301 in West Parkton, Tobermory Road. This was earlier converted to an all-way stop, and it's now been funded for a roundabout. And so this contract was awarded this week. So it's great to see that our engineers are using their crash data to help identify where roadway improvements can be made to make a real difference in safety. And I'm a proponent of roundabouts. I really think that it makes all the difference in the world. In the past 3 years, we've worked hard to reduce our crashes and injuries, striving to reach Vision Zero. We have learned about a number of resources from local, county, and state levels to assist us in addressing our traffic safety issues. As we move forward, we are now going to turn to our faith ministry in our county to implement a clergy outreach program. Our faith-based ministry are part of our task force, so today we will have focus and lively discussion on how the outreach program can help us spread traffic safety messages throughout our county. We've got way too many people dying on our roadways. We're averaging 48 people a year, and the tragic part about that is a lot of these deaths are very preventable. It's just not acceptable that we just keep seeing the deaths and not do something, or at least try to do something about it. I think we can change the trend. In fact, we definitely changed the trend some from our start until this year. For whatever reason, the year of the pandemic, 2020, our numbers went back up, but that wasn't just a local issue, it wasn't a state issue, it was very much a national issue. So today we have with us Dr. Elizabeth Ray Bill, and I'll refer to Dr. Bill as Ray. Dr. Bill's an associate pastor at the Gathering Church in Durham, North Carolina, where she is responsible for community outreach and spiritual formation. Ray was born and grew up in Concord, has 20 years of experience in pastoral care and consulting with leaders in numerous organizations. She is chaplain trained at a level 1 trauma center and has worked in depth with first responders following the events of September the 11th. Her doctoral work includes studies in emotional well-being, spiritual health, and resiliency. While she is outside walking for exercise and relaxation, Ray spends hours wondering about things like the humor of God and how to help others succeed. Recently, she and her husband of 30 years decided to fill a composition book with 10 things they each are thankful for each day. Most of all, they are grateful for their daughter and son, a college senior and high school senior, and that their kids seem pretty thankful for them as well. Ray's ongoing goal was to learn the difference between poison ivy and other vines because she's tired of being laughed at for decorating the fireplace mantel with poison ivy. So without further ado, I'd introduce to you Dr. Elizabeth Ray Bill.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Grady, and thank you for the privilege of being able to be here and be with my brothers and sisters in ministry in Robeson County. It's a joy and a privilege to be able to be here, and I wanted to share about sort of what was going on in my heart when the Vision Zero Task Force people reached out and said that they believe that clergy involvement is key to the success in Robeson County's Vision Zero pilot project, that they really believe that we as pastors have the influence and the deep and abiding relationships that it takes to be able to help people take that small 3-second step to buckle in their seatbelt. And here's what I felt. I felt incredibly heartened because I've watched clergy all over the state struggle through COVID to figure out the next right, best step for their congregations and for their communities. And it just seemed that no matter what they tried, there would be a difficult reaction to endure from one perspective or the other. A friend and I were talking about if in the beginning, if you said mask up, you didn't have faith. But then if you didn't wear masks, you weren't being responsible. Or if you gathered indoors and weren't spaced well enough. There were so many difficult and different situations that pastors were trying to just get their minds around how to do the right thing in a time that we've just not known. And just the beleagueredness. Pastors generally do what they do because they love Jesus and they love others and they love being able to equip and care for people. And they couldn't go to the hospitals to visit folks. The times were very, very tough. And so to hear that our people in Vision Zero believe that we're key just gave me a lot of a good strength and a good sense of, gosh, you might be right. We're trying to survive the overwhelm, and it was like a breath of fresh air to say, hey, we think you're important in this. One of the things that when the tasks of being a pastor seem to be so profoundly big, one of the things we know that helps is to start with the smallest thing that we can be successful at. Distracted driving is at a national high right now because of the stress and the difficulties of the season. And sometimes the smallest thing might look like, I got myself safely to and from the grocery store or the church office. And that begins with just putting on your seatbelt. I went back and I listened to Reverend McNeil's comments from the Burnt Swamp Association back in the 2018 meeting. And what I realized is that these pastors are amazing in Robeson County. A lot of folks are doing a double duty, bivocational. They have the the relationships, and they have the deep and abiding listening and influence, but they don't have the time to develop the elements of connecting Christian faith to things like biblical literacy and integration to driving safety. And so the more I thought about the Vision Zero pilot project, the more scripture just jumped out at me, just off the page, really. And I started reading different Bible verses, things that have been in my head for most of my life, with fresh eyes. And the thing that really helped me to start connecting the importance of driver safety with our faith is this very brief verse where Paul is talking to the church of Thessalonica in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, where he says, "Now may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, and may your whole spirit and soul and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ." I don't know that I had ever read the "and body" part. I know I've focused on the spirit part and the soul part and the blameless part and the sanctified part. But this is a call to wholeness. And right now, as we're looking at these increased traffic fatalities in Robeson County, what I'm thinking about pretty heavily is this call to be whole again. And the fact that pastors are doing their best to look at the new and the whole emerging out of COVID-19, while still thinking about these last 5 years with the 3 natural disasters, the 2 hurricanes, and the disease, the pandemic, and how do we think about a new thing while we're still deeply entrenched in the remnants of the old things. And that's sort of where my heart and my calling sort of came in to be a part of what's going on here in Robeson County. You know, one of the things I was thinking about when we, one of my favorite books is a book called 50 Ways to Pray, that when we buckle our seatbelt, we're really giving a whole body prayer. If we just couple that with a few words of God in thanksgiving for the simple act of being alive. You know, just, Lord, thank you for my life today. I'm putting my seatbelt on. Thank you for my life today. From ashes I have come, to ashes I will return. Thank you, Lord, for the time that I have on this earth. Keep me safe, safe from harm, safe from others, safe from the enemy, safe from my own stupid self, my arrogance, my blind sides, whatever. Thank you, Lord, for keeping me safe. We have the brain capacity to pray all that as we buckle our seatbelts. And they are very small neurological, psychoneurological dynamics that the Spirit of a living God would like for us as pastors and helpers to be able to connect to our people, so that as they grow in their faith and their discipling, they grow in very small and doable acts of worship. And even that little seatbelt prayer is just one thing that we can begin to ask our folks to do. And before we move on to the next thing, I wanted to share an experience that's very formidable and foundational in my understanding of what it means to drive and be safe. And now, I've never told this story to a group of strangers, so bear with me on this one. When I was a little girl, in about the end of the 2nd grade, so if you know a 2nd grader, you can sort of just imagine that's about how old I was. My father was out in our backyard, and he was getting the backyard ready to put a deck on the back of our house. And he had this, he was in grading, and he was a carpenter. He was just a really brilliant man, very self-taught and everything. And one of the things he was very good at was surveying, and he was getting our backyard ready on his big Ford tractor for a deck. My mom wanted a deck, and we all wanted a deck, to tell you the truth. But it was going to take a lot of work, and one of the things he had to do was clear out the space for that to be done. And he was distracted when he got on his tractor. And as he was working, something broke loose from the roof of the house and hit him in the head, and it knocked him off of his tractor. And if y'all are familiar with those like big grading tractors, he had a big old box pan on the back of the tractor, and the wheels were, you know, huge. And y'all, if you've ever been around one of those things, you know there's a lot of space and a lot of damage can be done. Well, he fell off the tractor in between the front wheels and the back wheels. And those big old back wheels caught him. And they caught him at in such a way that he actually ended up running over himself with his own tractor. And instead of being dragged off, there, by fate of miracle, it was incredibly muddy at the time, and we live where that red clay is. The back tractor wheels were just spinning full speed. And my dad was caught between that big old box pan grader and these full speed spinning tractor wheels, just spinning in the mud, and just by miracle not being dragged off. And he yelled for me. And when he yelled for me, I came down, and instantly you could tell that it was really, really bad. And it was really, really wrong. There was no way he could have fallen off of that tractor and gotten back there on that box pan between those back wheels, that he had to have been run over. And long story short, I sat in the emergency room by myself. Those were, you know, in the days of dial-up telephones. My mom wasn't at home. There was nobody to call. I didn't have any brothers or sisters. And I sat there and I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited. And my dad spent the summer in intensive care and in the hospital, and he made it. I didn't see him all summer. Those were in the days where children couldn't go into the intensive care unit. And he came out of it eventually whole again, whole in body. And sometime after he finished walking with the cane and was able to get back on his tractor, the first thing he did was install a seatbelt and a roll bar. So this issue has profoundly shaped my sense of calling, my sense of understanding, because my dad was a man of great safety and few regrets. He was a genuinely decent and kind human being who had very few regrets. And one of the regrets that he did have was not having a seatbelt on his tractor. And when we talked about that theologically, it was his faith that informed him of the regret. And he shared with me that the second temptation that the enemy gave to Jesus in the wilderness was the temptation to throw himself down because God would send the angels concerning him and would save him from being dashed upon the rock. And Jesus said to the enemy, "It is written, Thou shalt not put the Lord thy God to the test. And my sweet father ministered to me about the importance of doing the small things first. And so I think it would be wonderful if we as clergy could sort of grab up that really important first best practice of developing that habit, and at least beginning our day with doing some small things that will minimize the potential for regret. We think a lot of times that overcoming the enemy's temptations or the difficulties of the day have to look so big and be so life-changing, but they don't. Jesus is the God of the small things. He ate the meals, he walked alongside. The small things count. And in the day of COVID-19, when we have so little control over all of the big things, I just think it's a very beautiful and inspiring and empowering invitation that the Vision Zero Task Force has invited we clergy people to be a part of in doing a great thing by doing a good thing that is small. And so with that said, maybe we could move forward and talk a little bit more about who you guys are. But first, before we do that, Grady, would you sort of walk us through the Robeson County map that we've got prepared for us today?
Yeah, so Ray, what this is, and again, thanks for your personal story, and appreciate you sharing that. If you look at this map, it's just a map showing the deaths that occurred in Robeson County from 2013 through 2017, the traffic deaths. And what's good about this map is we can see it's just not along I-95. It's just not in one portion of the county. It's all over the county. So it impacts all of us. It impacts all of us as family, friends, neighbors. We're all impacted by the deaths that occur, whether it's speeding, drunk driving, distracted driving. It's our community that's affected. So that's the reason that we wanted to just share this slide, just to remind everybody that we all are going to face this, where we're going to have deaths in our communities, regardless of whether we're in the northern part of the county, the southern part, the western part, or the eastern part. It affects all of us.
All right, good. Thank you so much for that, Grady. That's a real visual that brings it home, doesn't it? We'd like to make a shift now. One of the things I've been so impressed with Grady and Mark and Cheryl and Andrew is how they are deep listeners. They're listening with almost just a third ear to clergy perspectives on their goal of reducing the number of needless traffic fatalities in Robeson County. And one of the questions that's sort of bubbled up for us that we'd love to talk to folks about is, as a Robeson County pastor, the pilot program is very aware that you've shepherded your community and your parishioners through not one, but 3 disasters in 5 years, 2 hurricanes and a global pandemic. And as we're emerging from this profoundly saturated, no pun intended, season, what do you sense as pastors may have changed for the long term in your ministry. We just love to hear from you. And I think we've got somebody who's going to be trying to write down some of your points, and you're welcome to type in your messages or email us. But I'd love to hear your voices.
This is Pastor Steve Strickland. Can you hear me?
Hey, Steve. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, I am Director of Missions of the Burnt Swamp Association. And to answer that question, I would say through these events that we have had, we certainly have come to understand, or I have, the significance and importance of the faith-based ministries throughout our communities in helping people, hurting people that helping people that are hurting. That it is just such a great responsibility. And when these things began to happen, we certainly had a lot of contacts, a lot of people reaching out to us, a lot of people looking for help, a lot of people looking for answers, a lot of people looking for hope. And it gave us an opportunity to expand our ministry throughout the community to those in great need. So long term, there's been a change. It's just more of an awareness of the importance and significance of the faith-based ministries in our communities, and the dependence that our people have on pastors, preachers, churches to help in a time of need.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. That's great to hear. How are the pastors? I mean, you're a director of missions, right? You're a resource person for clergy, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So, how are you sensing the fatigue level on the additional demands? Do you have a sense of how the weariness factor, I guess I would ask?
Yes, very much exhausted, including myself, but certainly our pastors. Many of our pastors in Robeson County are bivocational. They work full time, which bivocational pastors in our communities usually means still full time work, but part time pay, because pastors, even if they have a full time job, they're still called upon so many times in a full time capacity, and they want to be there for their folks at all the time that they can. So many of our pastors, clergy, are very exhausted with now dealing with the pandemic as well. Some frustration, trying to be patient and faithful and wise in all of our decisions. I think you mentioned this earlier. Along with all the things we're dealing with, even now through the pandemic, of course, it does cause some disagreements and some division of how to navigate through these times. And so any resources available and help, like even this webinar today, is just such a great plus to any of our pastors, preachers, to help them along the way in ministry. I will say through this time, we certainly have learned our people are very resilient. They do overcome. They are strong. We've learned we can face tragedy and see light on the other side. And then at the same time, with the other side of that, it is a balance of looking for relief when we're not in such a time of facing such a great challenge. A season, we're searching for a season of peace and rest, and hoping that will still come soon.
Steve, one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of our local pastors here over in Wake and Durham County, sort of my friends and colleagues, have put their own losses and their own grief on the back burner, just constantly working toward the next requirement, the next shift in ministry, the next need in ministry. A good number of my my buddies have lost parents in the last year and a half and have really not even been able to take the appropriate time off to consider their own losses. I'm just going to guess that that's been maybe a little bit consistent across clergy communities at large. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, I would say so. And again, it's the demands, as you know, of the clergy and the ministry. We all, as pastors, at times, I think some of the folks, maybe this doesn't register with all of our folks, but our lives are affected, our families are affected. We face personal tragedies, but yet we're still called upon to minister to all of our congregation and our families, and we do the best we can with that. I've got a young pastor who a week ago preached his mom's funeral. She died with COVID, and I seen him yesterday. Since within a week after preaching his own mom's funeral, he has ministered to 2 other families, preached 2 other funerals, dealt with some other things, and I know he has to be mentally, emotionally, as well as physically exhausted. But as you know, as clergy, we do our best to be there for our people when called upon, regardless of what we may be dealing with ourselves. So anytime, again, we are offered help like what you're offering today, ministers need ministering too. They need comfort, they need counseling, they need encouragement. And so any resources that are available are always a blessing.
Thank you, Steve, so much. That means a lot, and I really appreciate you for saying this word, particularly on behalf of the Burnt Swamp Association. Thank you. How about anyone else who's got another word or two about what you sense may have changed in your area of ministry? If you've even been able to start thinking about what's gone, what's not coming back, what are some new areas or new needs? How about attendance? I'm real curious about how church attendance, is it starting to come back in Robeson County? What are the percentages of re-engagement like?
I don't want to be the only one talking, but from my perspective, it's been a slow process. Most of our pastors in our association continue to offer the availability for folks to come in the building. There's been some changes recently due to the high number of cases in our community, but they're also offering opportunities for folks not feeling safe to come in the building to drive up, listen on their radio, still be able to have some connection there. They're offering YouTube, Facebook Live, all those kinds of things. But for most of my pastors, they are missing some folks. They're not seeing some folks. They haven't seen some folks since COVID, and the regular attendance is not back up to par in the buildings, and now currently we are hit with another heightened time of COVID cases that again are changing some things for us.
Okay. That's great to know. So the not in the building option, then is the drive up and radio listening. That's like what maybe we call parking lot church, where folks are at the building but not in the building.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great.
We have one church that actually building, it's almost like an outdoor amphitheater type deal during the height of COVID this past year, where many folks just drove up and stayed in their cars during the whole session, but they were outside and there was an outside stage and all those kinds of things. So our pastors have done well to find a variety of ways to continue to minister to people and gather people to worship.
That's a great example of that nimble resiliency that you were talking about earlier. I've been at the gathering churches. The church that I serve is only 11 years old, and they met until COVID hit in an elementary school right on the Durham Chapel Hill line, and then Durham County Public Schools, let all the renters know that they needed to evacuate the building. And so our senior pastor, again, a young guy, amazing job he has done. The senior pastor of the church retired in April of 2020 in the middle of COVID, and he stepped into the lead role. And in this very short time of him being the lead pastor, he's had to shut down in the elementary school and then do Zoom church, which our church and his creative thinking did incredibly well. Very meaningful Zoom worship. And then we worshiped in a field so that we could all be outside and sing. And we just did a lot of praying that it wouldn't rain. And now we are in the building of one of our ministry partners. And so, he's done 4 different worship settings in less than 2 years and still shows up and brings it. And all of this actually started, on the heels of some family losses, in his own family. So I respect just the determination of this tabernacling time. If we want to go Old Testament in what these pastors are trying to do, we're tabernacling. We're the church scattered in a lot of ways. So that's very good and very helpful too. Does anybody want to chime in? I'm going to give like a 3-second count, and then we'll move to the second question. Okay. Question number 2. What parts of your ministry have become more difficult for you as a result of the pandemic? And again, feel free to elaborate and just say or add anything. If we're not asking the right questions, chime in and say, hey, here's a question I wish you would ask.
I would say, again, this is Preacher Steve. I would say one part of the ministry has become more difficult is, to be honest, and maintaining unity. There, again, is so much division. Much of this has become so politicized, and there's so many different opinions and different convictions. among people within the same faith. And at the same time, a great concern on my part, it should be a time that the clergy, the ministry, the church would shine and lead the way. But unfortunately, I think there's currently been an opposite effect, and there's just been a lot of division among clergy and opinions on directions to go. And from my position particularly, it is hard to navigate through those different opinions and convictions and be respectful because I have my own opinions and convictions. And so it's been a challenge to maintain unity. I would think uh, to me it's been the greatest challenge during this in light of the pandemic.
Man, okay, yeah, absolutely. That'll preach. Yeah, thank you so much, Steve, for saying that. Yeah, that would be very consistent with what I've seen and with my experience as well, and sort of the anxiety and stress for pastors who are loving people who, one pulls one way and one pulls the other way, and often the pastor is caught in the middle, with his or her own convictions. So that's very helpful to hear. I know we've got some folks from the United Methodist Church in, and I know they're being very prayerful as well, just about their denominational unity right now. So we might want to just, as we go our own separate ways, submit that bigger point that you just made to prayer for all the people who are seriously working out their faith with, I think the Bible says, with fear and trembling, and it's not fear as in punitive fear, but respect and trembling.
Ray, hi, it's Robin Jones. I am bivocational and I apologize. I have actually been with the patient for the last 45 minutes, so I'm just now getting to speak. I am with the United Methodist Church. I serve in Gibson, however, I live in Robeson, so that's how I was able to be on this call with you all. I definitely agree with Reverend Strickland. No, I'm sorry, wrong last name.
No, that's right.
Anyway.
You're right.
Okay, so yes, it's a crazy morning for me. That yes, there is a lot of things that are going on within the church. My numbers were not large to start with. However, I've actually gained a couple of members just because we did go back into the church prior to some of the other churches. But then I've got folks that have no issues getting up and going to work and going to Walmart and going to Lowe's, but yet are afraid to come into the sanctuary. So that's where I hate to say I step on toes on Sunday mornings. You get up and you can do all these things. You're asking God to give you grace and mercy to get you through your day, but yet you're not willing to come to the church to let's worship together, even though we are still checking our temperatures, we're still social distancing, we're still wearing masks while we're in the sanctuary. So yes, that's where I'm coming from at this point, because it's discouraging as a pastor, because I've only been a local pastor now going on 3 years, and it just kind of makes you wonder, what am I doing wrong as a pastor? However, but then when I speak with others, I realize I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm doing everything I can within God's will to do what I have to do. So that's where I'm coming from a very small rural church within the next county over, but still, I think my cohorts in Robeson are still having the same issues as well.
Gotcha. So you would say your experience then is pretty consistent, probably with other pastors.
That would be correct.
In the Rockingham district? Is that your district?
I'm actually, well, no, we're no longer considered a Brockenham district. I'm still in the Gateway district, which is Robeson, Scotland, Hoke, little part of Moore, a little bit of Sampson.
Okay.
But I work here at Scotland Memorial Hospital, so I'm seeing things here too that, you know, it's constantly changing. One day we may be wearing regular masks, the next day we're wearing N95s. You know, it's just there's always something different that's taking place, and then I'm having to address this with my church members, reminding them to stay safe and to not be out without a mask on, even if they've been vaccinated, because now we are able to get the Delta variant with both vaccines. So just kind of, you know, when I do my devotions and I send them out, my last words to them was, be safe and just know that I love you, because I don't know if that's going to be the last time I tell them that or not. So that kind of it's beginning to be stressful, especially working in healthcare as well as being a pastor.
Yeah. 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 Ooh, yeah. So, you know, you're highlighting something that one of the things we've talked a little bit about on our staff over at the Gathering Church is that, you know, this time, like our weaknesses as a church, meaning capital T, capital C, and the individual locally autonomous churches, that our weaknesses have become weaker, and our strengths, some of them, sadly, were not as strong as maybe we thought they were. I was a little bit shocked to hear pastor friends talk about how quickly folks actually forgot one another's names once they ended up having to worship on, you know, Facebook, or once they stopped going into the building, that people were, the relationships weren't quite as threefold. A three-strand cord, you know, is not easily broken. That some of the relationships were broken. Going back to Pastor Steve's point about unity. So I respect that sense of, oh gosh, you know, I saw them at the food line, I saw them at the Walmart. Gosh, I miss seeing them in the church house. What else? What else has been difficult for y'all?
This is Robin again. I would say one of the things that's been a challenge for me is that we have church members who don't want visitation right now. And, you know, that is key as a pastor, to be able to visit and spend time with, you know, in their own environment. So, and other than just talking to them on the phone, and then you've got the barriers of them not being able to hear you because of they can't hear, and just not being able to show that love that we're so accustomed to sharing with those that we shepherd.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. These are very difficult issues. And I have so much respect and want to just honor and thank you. I'm not a senior pastor. Most of my career has been in assisting and supporting senior pastors and multi-staff churches. I've been in awe of what it takes to lead a congregation. You can't imagine doing that in a county that's had 2 hurricanes and then a pandemic. And if nothing else is remembered today, please remember 2 words: thank you. Thank you. I would love to hear from you guys about some next steps that we might want to take.
This is Shelton Hill. If you can hear me, can you hear me?
Yes, Shelton.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak. We are looking inside Robeson County at several opportunities that I think we've had things provided to us. Certainly this forum with a virtual task force, our shareholders, stakeholders here in the county, along with our partners from Raleigh, are helping us tremendously to gel in certain areas. And I was listening very carefully to Preacher Steve a moment ago. Did such a great job of describing how we reach people. Obviously, we're having to change things somewhat. This very meeting today is good evidence of that. We're having to find ways to communicate inside our communities as we are in the workplace. I have my mask close by. I'm factoring in that I'm in a pandemic. I'm just one person inside the county, one employee working Robeson County Administration Building, but I am taking seriously those threats and also those exposures that we have by working and trying to continue life during a pandemic. But also I want to go back to how much we have, I think, pulled this county together through this task force and also some other efforts, working, recognizing that we have far too many highway deaths. We're looking at what has worked in other regions. We're hearing from those people that bring success stories to us. As Grady mentioned, the roundabouts. Anyone in Robeson County that doesn't see the merits of that, all the planning, the studies that went into it, but look at the dividends that are produced, the fewer accidents, the reduction in exposures. We can use that and follow that same logic with the pandemic, the 2 hurricanes that we've gone through. We learned a lot during those 2 hurricanes of how resilient we can become, but also what can we do to help others that may not be at the table. This meeting today, our takeaway, what do we do to help the various ministries in the region and across the county? We have to work together. Very fortunate that we have one of our county commissioners has joined me today with this particular forum. He's seated close by me, and he's joined us. We do have the support of the full Board of Commissioners in our county. So thankful to see that coming together to help us grow efforts and also grow the support that we need to make this success, the success stories move from this county. We are looking at trying to use mass transit more here as we grow in numbers, especially in our municipalities. We have the University of North Carolina at Pembroke there, that the enrollment there has just exploded. We're thankful to have that. So again, having that support and takeaways and trust that's been built. Preacher Steve mentioned earlier, and I did hear our other partner, she mentioned how various people, you have to use different approaches to reach them, even to have services. But when we come out into the workplace, we go our separate ways to go home, following good sound judgment, logic, and doing those things that would help build trust across our county. Many times people will follow if we step forward to lead. That's my takeaway there. I do it if I go to church or if I'm in a county meeting here or if I attend this meeting. I'm going to follow the leadership and do everything I can to support that. So I wanted to mention that and just communicate to you guys that we do have a tremendous level of support across our Robeson County administration, our Robeson County law enforcement agencies, our Board of Commissioners. They're planning a really big event here 9/11 to recognize the first responders, the stakeholders in the community, the healthcare providers that have been so dedicated to their professions during the pandemic, and also to go back and it'll be September 11th to recognize those in New York that suffered such great loss on 9/11. So we look forward to being a part of all the efforts that are being made, and we also look forward to to inviting others to join us in that effort. So we're following your lead, Grady, and others. You guys from Raleigh and Ray, we thank you for everything that you're doing, and it's certainly great leadership that's going to produce the success stories here in Robeson County. Yeah, it'll be the 20-year anniversary,
Yeah.
September 11th. So we certainly want to not miss that opportunity.
Yeah. Shelton, thank you so much. Thank you for chiming in and giving that good word.
Ray, thank you. Sheldon, thank you. Steve, thank you. Robin, thank you. We just need to just kind of thinking through it. We'd certainly like folks to at least, we're recording this, so I'm hopeful to get this out to Steve, to the Gateway Conference, maybe to others, just for them to make it available for folks that were not able to meet with us this morning. I mean, folks have to work. We understand that. I think Steve made that clear. Robin made that clear. A lot of our folks are, have two jobs. I mean, the ministry is not their only job. They're not full-time in that. They are full-time, but not getting paid for being full-time, and also have another full-time job. So I get that, and I know it's difficult at 10 o'clock in the morning to expect folks to participate in this kind of forum, but thank those that did participate. And again, we're going to work to make at least Ray's portion of our meeting this morning available to other folks. Just looking forward, our next meeting is October the 28th. Ray, I want to invite you back just to kind of follow up on what we did today during that meeting. But other than that, does anyone else, Cheryl, Mark, Drew, anyone else have anything before we adjourn today's meeting?
No, sir.
We just want to, let everybody know that the tribe is still involved.
This is Mark.
And that we do have set up a site for COVID testing. So for the communities, for anyone that you think that might need that, spread the word through your churches, through your organizations, that the Lumbee tribe is still involved in promoting the safety of the community, and that we do have an on-site COVID testing site at this time going for operation Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30 every day. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
And that location is the main building?
Yes, sir. That main building here on 711, the Turtle Complex here, right on the parking lot area.
Okay.
Just follow the signs as they come in.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
I think Cheryl or Mark was going to say something.
Oh, Grady, Shelton, Shelton, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Mark.
Okay, am I good? Are we good?
I can hear you, Sheldon. There's some background noise back there, but go ahead, Sheldon.
Hey, one of the things I'd like to bring up and make mention of, I'm going to put one of our DOT stakeholders on the spot there, Cheryl Leonard, go back quite a few years with her. One of the things that our county is doing, and we'd like to bring it to the attention of this task force, is we know that especially in our high populated areas, that there's a tremendous benefit to be recognized if we can enlarge our mass transit systems and reduce the footprint of having so many vehicles in such close quarters. We certainly want to grow our transit system a little more. We are restructuring. We had a great leader for many years. One of our commissioners, who is now deceased, served as chairman for a good long time. We lost him, lost his advocacy, but we are restructuring that Transportation Advisory Board. We met yesterday. We'd like to really grow that system. Robeson County continues to be a tier 1 county. We suffer with funding, but it's going to take some dollars. Not probably the forum to beg for dollars now, but we certainly want to invite everyone that can step to the table to help us grow that. And we feel like highway safety will benefit tremendously in that area, and also our opportunity, increase our opportunity to meet the unmet ridership needs of many in Robeson County that could benefit from good, safe, dependable transportation. So we're going to be working more to do that going forward, and we'll invite your participation as well.
Thanks, Sheldon. Anyone else before we adjourn? Certainly appreciate everybody's attendance, and see you on October the 28th. Bye-bye.
Bye.